Okay, Daybreak. Who can read it here? Okay, now you can read it probably. Bonus if this is the first card you play in a round. So this is, I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's intuitive because Nightfall is like not the first card you play in a round. So basically, it's like if you play it first in a round, you're good here. All right, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and continue. Okay, so these are Targon cards. Solari Soldier, Daybreak, huh? Okay, little fast. Daybreak, give me +1/+1 this round. Fuck you! What? Okay, that's not that good. It's pretty good. It's kind of like Jagged Butcher, but kind of better. I mean, this is quite good. This is quite good. It's obviously a much better 1-mana Cythria. And you can compare it to Jagged Butcher. The buff is this round instead of permanent, but it's also a lot easier to get. Basically, this is broken. This is like a really, really, really good card. Okay, so Solari Shieldbreaker. 2 mana. Okay, these do go by a little fast, but that's fine. Give me 0/4 this round on Daybreak. So it's a 2/3/2, but the turn you play it, it's a 2-mana 3/6. So basically how I read this is it's basically, I would say, a worse Bright Shield Protector. I think that's a really good comparison. It's a 2-mana 3/2 that gives you this round benefit, but Bright Steel Protector is better because you can use it on a challenger or like a unit that's kind of like more valuable to protect, basically. And the idea is they do a very similar thing, right? It's like, so my opponent is about to attack into me. They're developing on like turn 3, and I play my card. It stops them from attacking. This is the same as Bright Steel Protector would do. I'd basically play this card, and they wouldn't be able to attack that turn, which is pretty decent. You don't need a unit to enable it, which is nice, yeah. But the fact that you can't use it on the, unlike challengers for value is a lot worse. So overall, it's pretty good. It might be a bit better than Bright Steel. It could be. Bright Steel is a very, very good card. So this is a very good card. You can even play it in like, some like aggro matchups. This is a good card, don't get me wrong. When I said it's like probably a bit worse than Bright Steel, you'll note that Bright Steel is a competitive auto-include card. It's really good. Okay. Sun Guardian. Overwhelm, Daybreak, give me +4/+4 this round. Huh. So it opens as a 6-mana 8/7 Overwhelm, which is a little juicy. I'm sort of in my head comparing it to something along the lines of like, what's the closest comparison? Isn't it like Alpha Wildclaw? Wait, isn't Alpha Wildclaw just better than this, basically? Wait, hang on. So at 6 mana, at 6 mana, it's most comparable to something like, yeah, Darius or Alpha Wildclaw. I think this is probably a bit better than Wildclaw. The ability for it to have like more stats on the turn you play it is probably a bit more relevant. The only downside to this card compared to Alpha Wildclaw, so Alpha Wildclaw, let's go ahead and, make the comparison. Alpha Wildclaw is the Freljord vanilla card that nobody ever plays, the 6-mana 7/6 Overwhelm cat, right? Star Guardian is 6 mana 8/7, so it's kind of like a +1/+1 on Alpha Wildclaw with 2 downsides. One of the downsides is the buff only lasts this round, which doesn't really matter because normally you kind of only need the buff for 1 attack, and the health is kind of always temporary anyway because they're always going to block it with something, right? Here's the problem, though. The problem is that you're not going to be able to open attack with this card, right? You have to play this into your attack, which is a bit of rigidity that Wildclaw doesn't have. And then we've got Ravun, Daylight Spear. Daybreak, create a random day card in hand. It's always day for us. Huh. Okay. That's kind of cute. So it's another like 5-mana 5/5. Wow. That's pretty good. It's not bad. Like, so making it always day for us, I don't think really matters that much. But basically, it's just like a 5-mana 5/5 that creates a random Daybreak card in hand. So you're really going to be looking for like, A, the average value of Daybreak cards, but B, also like the general synergy point of Daybreak. What I will say about this card is like, you're really going to want to run it when you're running a full Daybreak deck, right? Presumably, presumably this is going to be this is going to be a deck archetype that has some kind of Daybreak trigger level up or Daybreak trigger condition, right? What does that mean? Well, it's always day for us. It's always sunny, right? That show, Once Upon a Time, was good. Hasn't been good for a while, but, you know, that's okay. Anyway, basically, it just means you can play multiple Daybreak cards in one turn, which is really nice. Because in a Daybreak synergy deck, you will want to run a lot of Daybreak cards. And the downside of Daybreak, which is a downside that Nightfall doesn't have, is that you can only play one Daybreak card per turn, because Daybreak is the first card per turn. Nightfall, you can actually play multiple Nightfall cards per turn, right? This is a little bit different. This is, you can only play one Daybreak per turn, which means that if Leona's effect, if Leona's payoff is something like every time you play a Daybreak card, do X, well then this card's effect is pretty premium, given that, right? Because you'd be able to trigger that twice. Or if her level up is like hard to achieve. If her only interaction with Daybreak is the same interaction that like Nocturne has with Nightfall, which is simply I level up if day broken X times, then the ability to break day every multiple times a turn is probably not super valuable, but this is kind of like the biggest reason to play the card. Overall, you know, you're getting a random Daybreak card in hand. If we assume the wording is consistent, it might have the ability to create itself, but this would actually kind of surprise me. I kind of expect this card can't create itself just by its design, which might imply that the Nightfall card, also the spell, shouldn't be able to create itself either. You know, we're not too sure about that. So overall, you know, all of the cards we've seen so far have been Daybreak cards, so it's going to pull a random one. So just to give evaluations, let's just go ahead and get into it. Solari Soldier, I think I can give this a Lux emote. It's at least a swoon. It depends on kind of like how this kind of unit is positioned into the meta. It's not like there's certain spells that can be like absolute auto include. This is a really, really good card. I'll happily give this a Lux emote. It won't necessarily dictate the meta completely, but this is a really, really good card. It is basically better than Jagged Butcher. That's crazy. Then we've got this guy, Solari Shieldbreaker. I'm a really big fan of this card. This card is really good. The question is, like, is it going to be fitting? Is it going to be fitting into like standard decks? Another way of looking at it, you know, we compared it to Brightsteel Protector before. It's also a little bit like Iceveil Archer, a bit. I would say it is kind of a worse Iceveil Archer. In that, like, Iceveil Archer is a really big threat in like the mid and late game. This only gets 6 health, and it really can't do quite as much as Iceveil Archer at those points in the game. The only downside Iceveil Archer has is like the 1 health. I would happily call this a swoon emote. I think this is pretty good. Like, I think this is a great card, but I do think it's like not quite as good as the 1-drop. At the end of the day, with a card like this, it's auto-include in Daybreak decks, of course. Same as any card that you'll see here, with the exception of maybe the next one we're going to go over. But the question is, like, will it be, like, how often will it be run outside of that deck? It's really hard to say. We haven't seen much of Targon. It's hard to do these evaluations for Targon. But I do think it's a little bit below a Lux in this case. We'll see. It's a very, very good card, though. This one's kind of doo-doo. Sun Guardian. For the most part, yeah, it's a side grade to Alpha Wildclaw, a card that doesn't really see play. Oh yeah, it's an epic, so we know so Legends of Runeterra does something where they make all the epics really, really bad. And so when we're doing card evaluations for like a new set, all we have to look at is the rarity gems sometimes. So yeah, this card is, I was actually kind of like trying to think like maybe but yeah, it's an epic, so yeah, no good. Okay, so Sun Guardian out of the way, let's go ahead. I'll call it I'll call it a Heimerdinger. It has Daybreak. The thing is, Alpha Wildclaw is actually like kind of close to seeing play in the... Okay. Alpha Wildclaw has been slightly underrated in the past. I will use the word slightly. And the thing is, there's going to be Daybreak synergy, so I can't necessarily say this card will literally have to be bad. This card is probably bad, don't get me wrong, but there will be Daybreak synergy that we haven't seen yet. Listen, this is literally what Heimerdinger means. Heimerdinger emote is basically, this card will probably be bad, but it's very close, just needs a little bit of like potential support to make sense. And that's what Sun Guardian is. Okay, and then we've got Raven Daylet Spear, which is, you know, the Daybreak could a random Daybreak card in hand. It's always day for us. This is a pretty great card as well. This one is kind of like more pigeonholed into the Daybreak archetype, but I'll also give this a spoon. These are all pretty good cards across the board. Like, this is also a solid card. The question is, similar to the second card we saw, similar to Solar Shield Bearer, the question, like, obviously this is auto-included in the Daybreak deck, presumably, you know, depending on what kind of synergy point that's going to be. The question is, will this card make sense outside of Daybreak decks? Will this card make sense outside of a deck that even cares about Daybreak? Will you just run this as a 5/5/5 that creates a random Daybreak card in hand? The answer is probably not. No. It's like, it's not the furthest thing ever, but it's sort of like a Swiftwing Lancer that doesn't have Challenger, basically. Not quite worth it, because Swiftwing Lancer is like a very good card, and you know, that one does make the cut. Without Challenger though, it just loses kind of like too much of its purpose. There's just better things to run. And a lot of the Daybreak cards you're getting are kind of useless after, like, at this timing. Like, getting the 1-drop at this point is like, the 1-drop's good, but at that point in the game it's less good. The same goes for the 2-drop, and the 6-mana card is not really a great card overall. So yeah, you're not going to run Ravun Daylight Spear outside of a Daybreak deck. And you know what? I think that fact alone makes it closer to a Vlad for me. I think this is a good card, don't get me wrong, but I do want to give it a Vlad, because unlike Solar Shield Bearer, it's not really going to be seeing play outside of that. But it's pretty good. Vlad's a pretty good rating. It's a pretty good card. There's nothing wrong with that. All right. So that's the kind of like initial overview. Not too much else to go into here. Tomorrow we're going to have Leona, and you know what? That also probably means we're getting Diana too, right? I expected they were going to release Leona and Diana together, and now that they're showing, you know, Leona, they're showing Nocturne, it really feels like tomorrow, or sorry, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be Leona, and then 2 days after that will probably be Diana, would be my guess. I mean, we'll see, but that would also make Nocturne feel a bit more complete.